The change I've seen in especially the level one guys, because they haven't been exposed to any of this leadership stuff and they've never really done any of it. The change in them. So when we sort of threw around these ideas of them being a level one leader, you could see that a bit of ego comes into it, and they start to do a bit of I am, I'm better than the next person, whatever. And with the training that we've implemented and the way we're going about it, breaking down those sort of egotistical barriers and any of those limiting beliefs that they have that encourage ego, they produce so much more, and they get things across the line, and they do things that you think are just impossible for someone to do. And they would be impossible if someone carried around ego.
You're listening to Transformation Unlocked, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with Australia's top trade businesses. Today, Adrian Fedini chats with Shane Pinner, Managing Director at Tonkin Group, a regional powerhouse delivering plumbing, air conditioning, electrical, roofing, and more. Shane unpacks how he and James Tonkin scaled their business from $7 million to $25 million, built a leadership team that drives results, and created a culture defined by professionalism, passion, and pride. Let's dive in with Adrian Fedini and Shane Pinner on Transformation Unlocked.
Hello and welcome to Transformation Unlocked. I'm Adrian Fedini, and today I'm here with my dear friend Shane Pinner. Shane Pinner, how are you, sir?
Mate, how are you? I'm great. I'm fantastic. Happy to be here, so thank you very much for the invite.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure. Since the day we met, we kind of gelled, and we've been talking about this time or this moment for some time. Yeah, so mate, can you introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell us a little bit of a background, and then we'll dive deeper into your story. But yeah, just a bit of an overview to start with.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Managing Director of Tonkin, so James Tonkin and myself are the directors. We've got a couple of other co-owners in the business, that's smaller shareholders and minor shareholders. And those guys make up basically the trade management group. But for me, James and I came together about 5 years ago. Well, it's 5 years ago this August. We came together, and he had his business, I had my business. My business was in refrigeration and air conditioning, so I'm a trained Friggy, which is the grader of the trades, I'll say.
Tell me not to say anything. If I can't say anything nice, I'll say nothing at all. So I'll just...
Yeah, so there you go. All right. Well, I'll run with that then. So we're the most superior trade, and there's plenty of plumbers and probably plenty of electricians on the call or will be watching this. But so I'm a Friggy background. Had a little fridge business here, and James had recently bought his father's business off him. So when we're talking the two businesses, they're two sort of 40-year businesses. So, within and around Albury, two fairly in-depth legacy businesses, and we decided to bring them together for many reasons 5 years ago. And yeah, that's where how I've landed here at Tonkin.
Yeah, love it. And I know a little bit about the story about how you guys met, because I believe you knew each other for quite a long time before you actually became business partners. And it's actually something that'd be very... I'll add a bit to this. I often get people coming to me and say, Adrian, I want to get a business partner. And I go, well, you better know what you're getting into before you decide to become business partners. So I know you guys knew each other. Do you want to talk a little bit about how long you knew each other and how you decided what roles you were going to take and how you made sure that you weren't stepping on each other's toes?
Absolutely. So early days, I'll go back a step further. So my father was in business with another guy locally. And so that was a partnership. That was an old school partnership. So those old school partnerships generally didn't have much basis. They were sort of two technical guys that came together. Someone out of the partnership generally took over the books, the other one did the work, and there wasn't a whole lot of growth. Wasn't any systems or procedures or anything like that, no work contracts, no anything. It was just get the work done, get the work in, get it done. And historically, that's how it always was. I'm not sure, probably today you come across that a lot, but it's probably still prevalent in the trades. From there, it built some sort of negativity within the partnership because there was a bit of unfairness. Anyway, fast forward, father and I went out on our own around the 2000 mark. I was still a second-year apprentice. I did my trade late. I started working with my father when I was about 10, so I'd been involved in the industry for a long time, but went off and did some other things and actually owned a takeaway shop for a few years and did some other things. So that was my university degree, I suppose. I learned a lot about business and I learned a lot about myself in that time, of what I needed to do to succeed, because that was not a success, 100% not a success. Had plenty of failures along the way. But we fast forward into Dad and I starting a business and that went really well. So I'd sort of been exposed to partnerships a lot through my life. And with Dad and I working together, we really understood the need to be completely open and honest and to have each other's back and to make sure that we were there for each other. And I suppose being family, that's sort of drilled in you anyway. So the bad part about working with your family is that you take all your work home and you can never really escape. So when I sort of got the opportunity to take over from Dad, he retired and we worked out a way to get him out of the business. And then the business was mine for a good 4 or 5 years. And in and around that time, James and I had met through our social channels and we became good friends. And at that point, James was working for his father, worked his way through the ranks. He was an apprentice plumber. And, you could tell that he had ambition as well. So along the way, he married Victoria and they got together and they sort of formulated a plan to take over Tonkin Plumbing, or Gary Tonkin Plumbing as it was back then. And then they had that for a few years, got that going, got some really good traction with marketing and brought a new vibe to the trade space locally and put a real professional spin on the trade space locally, with their marketing, with the way they presented, and I suppose approach customer service with a completely different spin on it as to our trades were. And I was trying to do that as well in my space, in the refrigeration space. But we fast forward a few more years and James and I have been talking a lot about potential mergers, what we can do. I sort of needed a bit of what they were doing in the marketing space. He needed some aircon and Fuji guys to help the expansion process. And as it turns out, we came to an agreement and we merged our businesses together 5 years ago. Off the back of that, what we really focused on early was making sure that we set it up correctly. So we've got a very good business advisor in Dean Bokeh, our accountant and business advisor at RSM here locally, and he's very big on the technical side of things, making sure we had a shareholders agreement, making sure we had all the legal stuff in place, making sure we all had agreement, making sure we all knew where we were going, that we were sharing the vision. It wasn't just one vision and other people buying into that initially. Like we created the vision together and we made sure we were both on board with that. And the shareholders agreement basically reflected that. It's easy to come up and say, look, I just work on a handshake agreement. Well, that doesn't work. Going forward, in reality, it's not something that works. You need to come to some sort of agreement. It needs to be legally binding. I think the bigger part of it, you need to share the vision. You need to understand that what you're trying to create is bigger than the two of you, and it's there to sustain and support other people, so your staff, and support growth and support development, not just support the back pocket of the two directors. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than the two people there that are going to be at the top making the decisions. And that's what's really sustained our growth and helped us get from when I merged. I think we merged through, I brought my team in, we potentially got to 32 to 35 people. And then COVID hit, so it was a really uncertain time. We didn't know what was going to happen. And in hindsight, we all know that COVID was fantastic for trades, and especially the home services trades that we're heavily involved in as well. And over the last 5 years, we've gone from circa 35 staff to over 100. And we've had lots of changes along the way, and we've got a lot of moving parts in our business. The one constant, especially for James and I, has been that shared vision and that shared ideal of that we're here really to support growth of others. If we support others, then we'll get the support ourselves. You know yourself, we've got our 3 Ps, which are our mantra, our professional, passionate, and proud. And we try and bring that in every day, and we live by that. It's not just 3 words that are on walls. So when you get down to the nuts and bolts of this sort of thing, it's about making sure that you share the vision and making sure that you bring your best every day, and there's continual improvement. It's not, you see so many trades businesses out there that get to a point and the leader taps out and says, that's enough, I'm making enough money, I'm just going to shove as much in my pocket as I can. There's so much more to get, so much more to garner, so much more that you can share amongst the group and amongst the community, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's so much there. I want to unpack a few of those things. So I think there's a couple of points, and if I forget some of these, we'll come back to them. But I definitely want to talk about your growth rate. Your growth rate has been nothing but remarkable, and not just in revenue and size, but also in profitability. We won't go too far in that, but just to make sure that everybody understands, it's not just about revenue. It is about how much EBITDA or how much money you bank at the end of each year is a crucial metric to be followed. We'll come back to that in a second. I like to, even though we're not a podcast, also turn it into a bit of a coaching session for our listeners. It is absolutely paramount for our listeners to understand. You guys understood that you both had something different to offer one another when you came into that partnership. For the listeners, if you don't have something, if you both are good at sales or you're both good on the tools, it's probably not going to work as a partnership. You have to have complementing attributes and skills to make it a match. Because if both of you do the same thing, one of you is probably not necessary. All right. I mean, I know it sounds a bit cold and a bit hard, and you guys identified that early. You did some of the marketing, and my goodness, if you're listening to this, start following Tonkin on Instagram. Victoria and Greta have done an amazing job building out that platform and that channel. It's by far, if not the best, one of the best tradie marketing Instagrams of Australia. And every single, like, it's so professional, so polished. So if you want to get a lesson in social media marketing, check that out. And you also realize that James needed more of that technical skill set that you brought in with the air conditioning mechanics and also the project management side. So it was really clear that you guys knew you could complement each other's weak spots. Is that a fair assessment?
There was that there, and then there was also in the leadership space. There was, I feel I'm a probably a bit more entrepreneurial, and James is a very good implementer. So when you bring those two together, so you can create ideas together, and James can implement, and he now, comes up with the ideas as well. Like, it's just a learning between the both of us over the last 5 years. We've been able to share different things, and we bring each other along. It's not, by any stretch, we're not here to outdo each other. We're here to bring each other along, and that's the biggest part of our business is we do bring each other along, and we make sure that we're helping each other grow in the spaces that, we can. And we got to a point now where we have a completely different structure to what we had 5 years ago, whereas it was more technical based 5 years ago. James was in charge of the plumbing side. I was in charge of the HVAC side, to now where James is the CEO, and basically I do all the corporate training in-house. So two completely different roles that we wouldn't even fathom 5 years ago, and the growth has just been phenomenal. As you touched on before, the growth rate we've had has been phenomenal. But, I think a big part of that has been the shared vision that we had, that was not, we just don't put a handbrake on it. We're not going to put a handbrake on it. We're going to support each other. And when James felt that it was maybe getting a bit out of control, he had me to lean on, and the same on my side. And we're there to support each other, and let's get through them. And we know the goal. We know what we're here to do. We know we're here to serve the community. We're here to serve our clients. And we're going to do whatever it takes to do that well.
Is the dream and the vision is big enough, everybody wins. It's like you said, it's not just about creators. Everybody gets paid well. Everybody gets a great career where they're satisfied and they're engaged. And I think yes, people value money and team members value money, but it's also to autonomy and vision. And I want to be on a winning team. And walking into your organization is just like you're walking into a tech hub in Sydney or Melbourne. It's a beautifully designed office, and it wins every day when you go out there and solve people's problems. So it's still really good. Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say that, and the bigger part of that, the way the office was presented, and has come a lot from Victoria as well. So James' wife, Victoria, she's had a really big hand in the way our office is presented. And, like you say, you don't walk into our building thinking it's a trade environment at all. I've heard a lot of people come to our office and go, geez, you'd think you're walking into a mini sort of IT company or something like that, but I thought we've got good breakout spaces. It's a really good environment for people to work. And, our lunchroom is second to none. That's a big thing for some people. We've got a great lunchroom. But our mantra is we continually improve. We want to continually improve because we know we don't do everything right. We know we get it wrong sometimes. 95% of the time we're smashing it out of the park because we're focused not on ourselves. We're focused on what we can deliver others. And I think that's the secret. If you can focus on delivering to someone bigger than yourself, then you're always going to be in front, because that's where your focus is going to lie. The hard part of that is bringing your team along to think the same way. But, we do the trainings, and we've made mistakes in the past, and don't worry, we've had to play catch up over the last 5 years for different things with our growth. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't change it for the world. I think we've got an outstanding organisation with outstanding people in it. We're outstanding leaders, and it's a testament to the strength of the vision, I think, when James and I first came together, about how we bring people along. And if you talk about, if you don't have complementing skills, then there's not really any point in doing it. But also, too, if you're not going to share a vision, or if you're going to hamstring yourself in that vision, or if the vision's only about yourself, then, you're going to sort of falter at some point along the way as well.
I want to add something to that too, because you and I speak it quite a lot. And attitude, mindset, that's kind of a thing that we love to converse and talk a lot about. And something that just popped in my mind there, you guys are very much abundance mindset driven, rather than, I see some business owners very fear driven. And I think that's also two-way go. Let's just let this thing grow as we're not going to get in its way of how beer is going to grow.
That's right.
What's the population of Albury at the moment?
And Albury Wodonga and surround is about 130,000, something like that.
And what are you tracking to turnover this year?
We'll be hitting somewhere around the 23 to 25 million.
Yeah, which is phenomenal. Like, that's the plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, roofing as well. While we're talking about numbers, what percentage of that? I know that you're pretty much 80% from my understanding of we're talking dollar value in maintenance, and the 20% would be a little bit that construction, still commercial fit outs.
Yeah, look, we do have we've got some big clients. Some of our bigger clients in the organisation are the construction plumbing space, or just construction in general, with mechanical services and plumbing and electrical projects. But that's by revenue, right? So it's nothing to have one project that might have plumbing and mechanical services in it that's worth 500,000, right? So clearly that's going to be more valuable in the revenue space than a client at home that's worth $250. But when you look at our client list and you see we've got upwards of 17,000 clients locally, then you can, you see that we're heavily reliant in that home service space. And that's close where we need to drive. Yeah. Look, honestly, there is construction projects and things that we need to do because we're regionally based, and we have really good relationships. And look, we don't go for the open tender market. We have relationships in those spaces as well. So that's heavily reliant on relationships, and we tend to find if those projects aren't fitting the margins that we need to make in the project space, then you don't go for them, and we don't go for the open tender. We know our numbers back to front, and we've built that over the time, and it's not a guessing. It's interesting, at the recent ServiceTitan event, talking to a guy there that you would know, I can't remember his name, but he said, I was actually embarrassed sitting in the might have been the afternoon of the day one after we went back to the hotel, and we had the session in the afternoon about profit and loss and balance sheets and the financials. He goes, I've never even looked at a profit and loss. I'm like, hey, how have you got 10 plumbers or 15 plumbers, wherever you had at that point, doing 6 million, and you've never looked at a profit and loss? How do you know what your business is doing? How do you know where to grow? How do you know where you can point the markers to sort of aim at things and, understand these things? It's just and I'm sure he's not alone. I'm sure there's plenty of trade organisations, trade business managers out there that just aren't interested in that stuff. And unfortunately, if you want to be a success, you have to be interested. You have to really dive into that and start learning about it.
I definitely would not say that I started out being a numbers guy, but I absolutely, we worked together for a few years now. So how data-driven decisions is my second favorite phrase, because the data will always tell a story. It's when you know your numbers, you can fix any problem you can identify a problem within your business within minutes, hours, and you can fix it within days or weeks, rather than get blindsided by a problem that you don't know exists because you never looked at the data. Yeah, that is putting you back. I mean, and if I'm a little bit of a control freak, I've been told by my daughter this morning I'm a dictator, but we'll park that for another day. But you do enjoy being in control. I did bring it up at your huddle we had earlier today, but anyway, I just spoke them feel a little bit better that not only does the team think that, my family thinks it as well. But the point being is, if you like to be in control of your life and in your business, and sometimes that can be to your detriment, you must master the data. You must master the numbers. And the data could be your marketing numbers. It doesn't have to be, it could be your KPI for installs and performance as well. There's so many different variations on data.
And to be clear, it doesn't need to be coming back through multiple streams. Like, you can still write it out if you're that way inclined and you need to write things down, pen and paper. Well, write it out and start to learn it. You've got to understand, and that's the biggest thing that I found when I was young in business. When it was me and my father doesn't even know how to turn a computer on, but I'd always been interested in numbers and the business side of things. And I would forever be at my accountant and prompting him and asking him questions and making sure that I understood. I had no fear of asking stupid questions because it was my business. I needed to understand, and I needed to know that in the future, I won't need to go to the accountant to ask the questions. I'll have the understanding and I'll know where I can drive the business, and I don't need someone else to help me in that space. So that was something I learned early on, that you take control to really, like you said, to take control of your life. You've got to take control of your numbers. And if you don't, then you're kidding yourself that you're in control of your life. Because if your life and your business basically, well, they're basically one and the same, We say that we can separate them, but we can't. The business is like another arm of ours. So if you can't control the numbers in your business, then you're not going to be in control of your life. It's just a sad fact of reality.
And it helps you. And that's another thing that I see in your organization. You guys execute amazingly. Like really, I know when James, yourself, and myself and the management team sat down a while ago and we wrote out a 5-year plan, and I think you achieved it in 9 months. And that's because you followed the data, you knew what you wanted to do, and then all of a sudden it just got executed at a remarkable speed. Because that is one thing. It's all great to have the ideas. It's all great to have the vision. But if you guys don't actually implement, which you do amazingly, that is a massive obstacle. Can you talk to that point about execution and why you think you guys execute so well?
Yeah, a big thing that I'm training the guys on now, that I continue to bring up every week, and I train, we've got 100 of staff, right? And I train 50 of them every week. There's 50 that aren't in training weekly, but we have training for them. But in the training that I'm doing, which is a lot of the leadership training, all different levels, I train 50 people in our organisation weekly. Everyone sort of gets a go every day. The biggest thing that I reinforce every single week is that knowledge without action is just knowledge. And what do you do with that? If you're the only one retaining the knowledge, if you're the source of truth, but you're not putting anything into action, then what good is it? You're not going to get anywhere. You might as well go and sit at the pub, spend all your money down there. You got to put things into action if you want to see growth. If you want to see change, you got to be the change you want to see in the world. And that's a big thing that we put into this year, is that, yes, we're not going to hamstring the business. We're going to let the business grow. The business, it's a living thing. It'll find its own way. And we're there to guide it, so to speak. But we have to let it do that. 2, we have to know the numbers. And 3, we have to take action. Where action is needed, we have to take action. In my level 1 training this morning, they're finding a few roadblocks with the implementation of ServiceTitan and some workflows that changed from the way we did things in ServiceMate to the way we're doing things in ServiceTitan, and the way we communicate our different levels of, we have installers and we have sales techs now, and the definitions around that, and what are the roadblocks you're facing and the roadblocks in the workflows. So I said, guys, you need to identify, you need to fail fast. That's the biggest thing that I've learned in business, is you fail fast. Get it out of the way, take action, if you need to sit in a meeting and get some outcomes out of a meeting, or you do that, and then you take the action straight away. And everyone's going to fail. Everyone will fail. And, you don't learn if you don't fail. And the more fails you have will ultimately lead to the stronger, better business and the more growth that you have. So, I could, fill up a room with the amount of failures I've had in my life over the years. And I'm only 47. I think I've got a lot more to go as well. But you've got to be happy failing, because that's where you're going to get your growth. Absolutely. To do that, to get the growth, you got to make the action.
Yeah. And I think, just to elaborate a little bit more, failing fast, for people listening, that means get into action, make a mistake, and do it quickly. I heard a great analogy once. If you're driving like a 20-ton truck down the highway and it's only doing like 5 k's an hour, you try to turn the steering wheel and it's really heavy and it's really hard. But if you do it at 100 kilometers an hour, then that 20-ton truck is much more agile, because you're moving, you can avoid stuff, you can make a mistake, you can continue, you can correct it. But if you're not in that momentum, if you're not in that flow, it becomes really hard to go and fix stuff. And exactly. Yeah, give me a contract. Yeah,
it's like, I've taken, since the ServiceTitan thing, I've taken a few calls from different guys about, they want to come and see our shop, and they know about Tonkin and all that, and that's great. Happy to do that for anyone that wants to come and have a look. No problem. And they always ask me about growth, and they always ask me about how we sustain it and all that sort of thing, and how we've done it, and our way of, I suppose, our org chart and different things like that. So, and the one thing that I find is that people are putting all these things together to sort of look like they have a really good business. So they have this social media presence, and they do this, and they have maybe the best platform to work off, or they do this, but they haven't taken any action in finding out if their core business is profitable. And so they've got all this shiny stuff that makes them look like a really good, profitable business, but they're actually not doing the thing, which is the work that needs to be done and the customer service that needs to be delivered to make sure they're getting the numbers ticking over to make sure they've got a profitable business. And, it's a lot about, in this day and age, unfortunately, it's a lot about the look first. And people are sort of getting all this fluffy stuff right. You go, oh, I still can't make any money. Well, your actually core business isn't profitable. You need to understand where you need to make the money first before you worry about all this other stuff. It's great to have it in your gun to get sorted out. But let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's make sure we're making money, or we can make money, we understand our numbers and where our drivers are and where we can grow, and we actually have a plan to get there. Then we can start tacking on all this fluffy stuff. And, do I need a marketing? Do I need marketing people? Do I need this? Do I need that? Do I add this in? Do I add that on? And you would probably see that a lot. So
100%. It's funny. I spoke to Doug from ServiceTitan the other day, and he says this to potential people coming on board that aren't ready. He goes, "You guys aren't ready for ServiceTitan yet. It's the best piece of software in the market, etc." And I've used this analogy a million times. You've heard me say it. It's still don't know how to drive a car, but in order to learn how to drive a car, I'm going to buy a Ferrari, right? And it could be the same. ServiceTitan, it could be a marketing manager or a new piece, quick relining truck or whatever the case may be. You've got to get the fundamental business model right. You've got to learn your numbers. You've got to master them. You've got to be profitable, and you've got to be consistent for probably 12 months, if not longer, before you start to invest in big outlays like ServiceTitan and relining trucks, etc. You got to get the core business model correct first.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. That
Yeah, we were lucky in a sense. When we bought the two businesses together, they were legacy businesses, 40 plus years old. But that's not to say they were done right. They were old school trade businesses, and they had a lot of baggage hanging off both of them. And it takes a lot to, make sure that you're doing right. And for me and for James and Tori, when they took over from Gary and Marie, when I took over from my father, the focus was the core business. Well, I suppose when it was Dad and I, the focus was the core business anyway, because I was a driver in that space. I know when James and Tori took over, it was the core business. Where's the future go like for Tonkin Plumbing back in those days? And they completely changed their model. And I suppose you'll probably get James on one day, and he'll talk about that transition there from being, they were predominantly project based, did construction plumbing, and they changed to a service model because they knew that's where the drivers are, and the service based stuff.
I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Gary, but I've heard stories of what Gary says. I believe there was like 7 team members when Gary was there, and Gary goes, "I must have been good because when I left, they had to replace me with 100 staff."
Yeah, don't worry.
I've heard that line thrown around the lunchroom at Tonkin before. I thought, what a great sense of humor.
He's a great guy, and he doesn't let us get too far ahead of ourselves. That's for sure. He's always done it well, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's something I want to add to what you said a moment ago about growth, and I think there's I know for a fact there's different levels of growth. When you're in the early infancy, it's all about getting sales and revenue, and then when you start to get to the size as you guys have been for the last few years, it's no longer about sales. And you identified this, and this is when you and James came to me with the idea with the LMS for leadership, and it's all about leadership. It is all about how do I get better operating efficiencies? How do I get better cohesion in the team? How do I get better delivery? Because you can sell everything under the sun, but if you can't deliver and actually get the job done in the time that you promise, you fall over and you lose your reputation very, very quick. Tell me about how you guys identified that and the fact that leadership was such a pivotal aspect for you to go, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 16 million only a couple of years ago. We're on track for 25. That is pretty profound in about 2 years. And that was off the back of you guys putting in leaders into certain positions.
Absolutely. So there's a few things to unpack there. So when we came together, I think Tonkin might have been doing 5.5. My business was doing about 1.5. So the idea was sort of to collectively, when we merged, was to sort of aim around that 7 million roughly. going to be a big give and take. There's going to be a bit of disruption in the two businesses coming together. Some clients will fall off. We'll get some more clients. That standard thing, that sort of approach. I think our first year we hit 9 million. So we exceeded by 2 million where we thought we were going to be.
In a percentage, it'd be probably about 25%. Yeah. So
Yeah.
well and truly overshooting the mark.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got there in the first year. We forecast that we do about the same. We were aiming for about 10. The next year we did 12 to 13. Following year we thought, this growth can't keep up, but we'll let it run if it does. But we were sort of forecasting. And again, this is, we've been working on our numbers and we've been improving our numbers all the time. And I'm not saying we got it right all the time, but we always had an idea of where we wanted to go. We always budgeted. So you had, there was a plan. We definitely had a plan. As small as the plan was back in the early days compared to what it is today, we still had a plan.
Absolutely.
I think year 3, we might have got to 16, 17 million, year 4, 20 million, year 5, somewhere we're going to hit upwards of 22, 23 million. So, we'll be at that space, hopefully pushing on to 25. So, but yes, along the way, there's been, really good indicators of what we needed. So initially we had 30 odd staff, pretty easy to manage when you've got 2 managers, you sort of get a good handle. Have some trade managers and bits and pieces, but generally speaking, up to sort of that sort of 7 million mark, great if you can get someone else in. I know it's a lot harder if you're just yourself, but you need to start investing in someone that can admin people that can make the policies and procedures for you and start investing in that space. So that's the hard slog up to about 7 to 10 million. You need to make sure you're getting all that done and not just focused on,
stuck in someone where, we kind of do it this way, and then the person leaves and you lose all their little touch.
Exactly. So there's a bit of a grind there up to that sort of 7 to 10 million mark, depending on what you're doing. And then when we pushed through to the sort of 15 million mark, we were hamstrung in a lot of areas and we started to put managers in place. And we found over the course of probably 18 months, it was fairly ineffective because it was so broad. We had managers looking after too many people and their teams were too big. So about 2 years ago, we formulated a different approach on our organizational chart where we have 5 levels of leadership. And realistically, level 3 to level 5 is only about 5 people, but where the guts of it is between the level 2 trade managers and the level 1 field service techs, which are basically the field leaders. That's where the crux of that's the conduit between what's pushed down from the top, as in, so the strategy, what gets formed as a strategy at the top, to the frontline workers and right down to the apprentice is the conduit between the level 1s and level 2s. And so you know how that works, but it's not complex, but it's a really strategic part of the organization that needs to work and have really good communication in that space. And that's where a lot of roadblocks happen.
Yes.
And that's where we've found that a lot of roadblocks have happened with us is communication breakdowns or workflow breakdowns not just between level 1s and level 2s in the same stream, but across the board. If you're not getting across the board buy-in with your level 2 and level 1 managers and making sure that we're having, good conduit connectivity, between our plumbing manager and our CSR, DSR manager or whatever in that space, or our sales manager, across the board, we have to have that efficiency as well. We're not just looking to silo, so to speak, our streams. So we're not just looking to silo our service plumbing and our roofing and our drainage and reline, then our refrigeration techs versus our heating and cooling techs. They're not siloed. We want to make sure that we're getting that cross-communication, cross-pollination where we want for the greater good of the business. And that's where we found the level 1 and level 2 leadership to be profound, and that's really helped our growth in the last couple of years. It's helped our growth all the way along. Well, we have to keep implementing change. We couldn't come up with a plan that would sustain us at 10 million that's going to be the same at 20 million. But we have to be evolving. We have to continually evolve, and this is the part of it. Like you say, you've got to know your numbers. You've got to have a plan. You've got to understand. You've got to be fluid. You've got to let things go to a certain degree. You can't just keep pulling the levers you want to pull. You've got to let the business sort of go its own way. And then I've found personally that you let the business go its own way a bit, grow its own legs, and you make changes behind that so you can support that growth. So you're not just the main person that's driving it.
Yep. It's fantastic to watch it. It's just a privilege to be a part of it as well. And if anyone's listening and thinking, oh, my guys won't do that, how much do your team love their training?
Mate, they love it. They love it. I just had the level ones this morning. So to recap, the level ones are basically our field leaders. So the level ones essentially are with our new way of doing things, are our sales techs. We have other sales techs as well, but we have level one leaders, which are the guys that lead from the field. So they're the ones with the most experience. So our senior technicians with the most experience, the most ability in our client-facing role. They can get a job across the line. They can do the job. They need to do it. There's no problem. But they basically become our customer service experts. They're there for a certain thing to do, and that is to serve the client. And with the way ServiceTitan works now, they're there as the sales tech to get the jobs across the line. And those guys, they've never really been exposed to any sort of professional or personal development. They eat it up. They love it. And we've got your LMS that you guys have developed for us. Frosty's done a lot of work on that. You've done a lot of work on that. So that's great. We've got 5 levels of leadership training in the LMS from you guys. And we also use external stuff, and I bring a lot of my own stuff into it as well. And just the leadership training and the growth that they've had. We've started our training back in October last year, I think. So our more regular training. We've always, encouraged training along the way. We've done sales training with yourself and different forms of business training and other little bits and snippets. But this more regular training, we are constantly on podcasts and learning ourselves as leaders, James and I, about what they do in the States. Because traditionally we're always, I would say, 10 to 15 years behind where the States are in any industry across the board. And we're looking at what's happening over there in the trades, and the likes of Keith Mercurio saying that if you don't implement regular training into your teams, then you're not going to have a team. So you're just not going to stick around. You're not going to have a business. Your business isn't going to serve you.
That was kind of the light in the sense. James and I came back from the States last year, and that's when we said, all right, we're training 5 days a week from this moment on. And that not every business has the luxury or the opportunity to be able to do that. Yeah, you want it to be like, that's just your bread and butter. You love it. You live and breathe. Your NLP trainer. For everyone that's listening, it's neurolinguistic programming. It's just such a natural direction for you to be going into, and that has just been and I'll say this to the listeners: the second you realize you're no longer a home services business and you're actually a training organization, is the moment that you'll start to really grow and really get good problems. That is it. You've got to be like, plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, roofing, pest control, locksmith, whatever it may be, is what you problems you solve in the field. But what you are is building up your team members, you're building up human beings, you're building up a system and a legacy for people to be able to be the best version of themselves. That's what you guys have realized.
Yeah, absolutely. And the change I've seen in especially the level 1 guys, because they haven't been exposed to any of this leadership stuff and they've never really done any of it, the change in them. So when we sort of threw around these ideas of them being a level 1 leader, you could see that a bit of ego comes into it, and they start to do a bit of, I'm better than the next person, whatever. And with the training that we've implemented and the way we're going about it, breaking down those sort of egotistical barriers and any of those limiting beliefs that they have that encourage ego, they produce so much more, and they get things across the line, and they do things that you think are just impossible for someone to do.
Yeah.
And they would be impossible if someone carried around ego. Yes. But they get it across the line. Cam, one of our best sales techs, he's just jumped in, and without any real training, he loves the 7 steps, and he wanted more of it, and he's just jumped on board with the Google reviews. And we found a way last year to reward him with that, and we've come up with new new initiative here at work. So we have a professional, passionate, and proud award at the end of each year. So the 3 Ps. So we have someone who nominates someone that's professional, nominates someone that's passionate, nominates someone that's proud. And off the back of that, we thought, well, we need to encourage the Google 5-star award as well. So because we want people to, put their best foot forward. We're doing it obviously for a business reason, but after it's all said and done, we want to offer customer service. And that's what we do. We offer customer service. And we want our customers to recognize that we're doing that as well. And with Cam jumping on the back of that and just smashing it out of the park, he got awarded last year the cup, the 5-star Google Review Cup. So it's one thing to say we want our staff to do this, another thing to reward them publicly for it. And that's been really well received. And I think it's just it's an amazing thing, and we continue to grow and continue to build these things. That I think it's the growth that I've seen in the level ones in the last 6 to 8 months is phenomenal. And if anyone takes anything from it, I'd say you need to get into training as little or as much as you can do. I know everyone doesn't have the luxury that we have currently, but we didn't either 5 years ago, and we've built it. We built it in. So it was something we always wanted to do. And that's right. We've had a goal of continual improvement, and part of the continual improvement is getting to a point where we can train our staff. And, if that's not going to be on your radar, then you might just have to be happy enough with people coming and going out of your organisation and not being able to grow past a certain point.
Your charity is ridiculously low. And then that comes back to because people can see a future in their career. It's not just a job, it's a career.
Yeah, not everyone's going to stay out forever. But, and you don't want them to either. You want people to go out and grow. But the ones that want to stay, we want them to be here for the right reasons. And they see a future here for them. And clearly we want people to start and retire here, the whole idea. And like I said, not everyone's going to do that, but we want to provide a workplace that people see value in coming to work. They're not just a tradie, it's actually a career. We provide careers for people. We don't just provide jobs. We provide growth. We provide avenues forward and people to earn really good money.
Please, as well, it's what it's about. Expression is sport.
Yeah.
It makes such like people can be a bit tall poppy and pick on a larger business like yourself in a small town. But at the end of the day, like if you guys don't step up and take the responsibility that you and James and the rest of the management team have, right, there's a massive vacuum of jobs disappearing. I feel what you guys have done for not only for yourselves but for the town as well. So it's well, like you just to get me cherry out at the last minute.
Yeah. Got to cry now, eh?
Everybody who doesn't know me, I pretty much cry every time I get inspired. So it happens a lot. I'm around with shame. So, mate, we might. There's so much more to cover, but I'd love to get you back with JT and do another episode in the next few months. I'd love to talk in the next episode.
I'll have this 3 hours long, mate.
You know what? We can do a J-Ro.
Hear the cigars.
100%. Maybe the CBD oil or something like that. I don't know, whatever your preference is.
We'll come to the studio and we'll sit across. We'll have Sarah there as well, and we'll chat. Be good.
Deal. Sounds like a planning. Mate, when you come back to talk about shareholders agreements, I think that's fantastic. I know Network do, and quite a few of the larger businesses we work with do something similar. And also too, what's the future? Again, we won't go into it today, but we'll talk about what's the future vision for Tonkin and where you're going to go and what the plans like, what plans you have that like for you. But I can't, mate, it's an absolute honor to spend this time with you, mate. Very, very grateful. I know you're a busy man, and that was amazing. I really appreciate lots of gold, lots of nuggets for everybody, and we really appreciate you taking the time out to be with us today. Thank you, Shane.
No problem, mate. Thanks. I hope everyone can get something out of it, and thank you guys for having me on, and I really appreciate it. Looking forward to the next one.
Absolute gold, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.